All right, my name is Jessie Zairo, and I am the Director of Library Sales and Outreach here at ByWater Solutions today. We are going to have two amazing sessions that will be talking about everything community, everything from Koha community to the Aspen Discovery community and beyond. Our first presentation today will be a little help from friends, open source community during crisis and response. And our moderator for that session will be Kelly McElligott, and we'll be joined by two library partners, Meg and Renee. So I'll let everyone do a quick round of introductions and we will kick things off. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, awesome. Again, as Jessie said, my name is Kelly and I am the Library Accounts Coordinator here at ByWater Solutions, and I'm happy to be here and let's talk all things open source today. I'll pass it over to Meg.
Sure. Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Meg Flynn. I'm the Assistant Director at the Grand County Public Library in Moab, Utah. I've worked here for about 12 years and have served in all kinds of roles, from circulation clerk to head of adult services and most recently assistant director. Do you want to give a little intro about our library also, or is that coming up?
We'll wait till we do all the introductions and we'll get back to you, Meg.
Great.
Thanks.
Sure.
Renee, round us off. Oh, you might be muted, Renee.
Hi, I'm Renee Rountree. I'm the Library Director for Washington County Public Library System. And like Meg, I've been with my library for 12 years next month. So I'm excited to talk to you about how to handle a crazy natural disaster.
That's fantastic. One of the things that we talked about, Jessie and I, when we were talking about doing a PLA presentation was just how to deal with crises. Of course, we're all going through this worldwide pandemic, but there are larger crises that have been happening. We have some examples at the end about libraries that we have been partners with that have also gone through other things that are not here with us today. And it's just kind of a good way to reflect, share your experiences, and be able to learn from those, and also hopefully help somebody else. So if that ever happens to them, then they're going to have the opportunity to have this knowledge already. So we're going to do this about like a round table, and I'm going to go ahead and ask some questions to these fabulous librarians who have gone through somewhat of a crisis in the past, and we'll go from there. So Meg, I'll start off with you. If you want to tell us a little bit about your library and the community that it resides in.
Sure. So Grand County Public Library is located, we have population of around 10,000 people in our county. We're fairly small and rural. We often joke for context that the closest Walmart's like a 2-hour drive away. But even though we're pretty small, Moab is a popular tourist destination just thanks to the proximity we have to some national parks. So we often are dealing with a much larger number of people because of seasonal workers or tourists, all sorts of other folks that are visiting the community. Our collection size is about 55,000 items, and staffing wise, there's 18 folks who work here with a full-time equivalency of about 11 and a half. We're primarily property tax funded public county library, with a budget of around $900,000 a year. And our main library building is in Moab, the town of Moab, which is the county seat. And it's currently open to the public now, Monday through Saturday, for a total of about 63 hours per week. We do have one small branch that we jokingly call a twig in the community of Castle Valley because it's quite small. It's basically a wall of books in the community center that's out there. So we technically have a branch that's little. They were open prior to COVID for about 15 hours a week to the community out there, but unfortunately have since been closed, and the town controls that building and they have not reopened it yet. So at this point, they are offering curbside service out in that community for 3 days a week for a couple of hours. And I realized today we've been a ByWater partner, I think, for almost around 10 years. And yeah, I know, how exciting. And then we started with Koha in 2009. So we're grateful to be part of that community.
Awesome. Great, thank you, thank you. Okay, Renee, take it away.
I am library director for Washington County Public Library in Florida. There's a lot of Washington counties in the United States. I am not by gorgeous sandy beaches. I am out in the woods, the rural woods of the panhandle of Florida. And I'm in the central time zone. So shockingly enough, everybody thinks that Florida is all Eastern. That's not exactly accurate. Our population is around 25,000 people. We have 4 library locations. Our main library location is in Chipley. Its population is around 3,200 people. Pretty much, I would say about 20 of the 25,000 people live outside of unincorporated areas. So everybody lives out in the country. Not many people are in town. And our hours reflect that. Our main library is open Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Literally people come in town for the week, for school, bank, church, whatever, and then they go back out to the country, and then they don't come into town if they don't have to on the weekend, which is nice because that means I have weekends.
It's a rare find. It's a rare find, Renee.
It is a very rare find. It is a very rare find. Our budget is around $600,000, which kind of fluctuates depending on a variety of things. We are like Meg, property tax based, but we also receive something called the public state aid to public libraries grant that the state of Florida does. So that comprises about, I would say, a good third of our budget comes from the state, in addition to what the county puts in, and then whatever fines and fees or whatever that we are able to collect locally, especially with donations. I know that I'm also a rare exception in that money that is collected actually comes back into the library's budget. So that helps us considerably. So that's pretty much Florida. But like the real Florida, not the Florida with palm trees. There are not palm trees in Chipley. So yeah, just something to remember.
So Renee, is it like,
so go ahead.
I was just gonna say lots of pine trees.
Yes, that would be accurate. There are lots of pine trees, no palm trees.
Okay, so now we're going to jump into the fun part. We're going to talk about a crisis that y'all have experienced, and I'm going to reverse it, and we're going to head back over to Renee to start us off with. Just tell us a little bit about why we would pick you to talk about a crisis that you went through, and of course, we have some pictures too. We'll show.
Oh my gosh! Okay, I don't know how I feel about that. So like 2020 wasn't like a bad enough year for everyone that, 2020 was a humdinger, for lack of a better term, for Washington County Public Library. So in September 16th of 2020, our main library facility flooded from Hurricane Sally. If you asked anybody what Hurricane Sally was, they'd be like, what hurricane? All right. Nobody realized that it even came through. Like, I've lived in Florida my entire life. I'm like, I didn't even sneeze at the fact. It was like, it's a category 1. It's nothing, right? But the problem was it stalled over Washington County, and we received 20 inches of rain in 24 hours. And so we flooded 8 inches into our building. I'm just grateful that good drainage is essential. Just going to tell you this right now. It's not something that you think about, but it is. So we took 8 inches. The city hall next door to us took in 18 to 23. The fire department and the police department, which was behind the city hall, they took in around 24. And then in our ag center, which is on the other side of city hall, they took almost 36 inches of water into their building. So 2020 was the year of water, not even the year of COVID for me.
That is crazy town. Oh, Jesse's going to show I feel like that person in the orange is either in a really deep hole or that's more than 24 inches.
Yeah. So the reality of it is that like, so it kind of dips down into like a curve into our building, but like the guy on the far right is standing right at the entrance to the building. And then, the two guys pulling the boat that's our regular parking lot. That's right by the handicap spaces. And the crazier part was I was there that morning. Staff were told to not come in, obviously, but I'm exempt. So I was in my position is handling public information for EOC because I'm a county department head, in addition to being a library services director. So I was there and I didn't think anything about it. I parked kind of higher up because I'm like, oh yeah, maybe the city hall parking lot will flood just a little bit. But I was there 8 o'clock, and by like 9:15, I was like, okay, I'm starting to get a little nervous. So I sandbagged the back door because there's a retention pond out the back door. I put on my black rubber boots and I walked to my car, and then I just hoped and prayed that everything was going to be okay. And then it kind of wasn't.
Wow, let's just pause there for a second because that's like intense. So Renee, what was your objective right from the beginning? Was it like, you actually wore two hats, you're a librarian, but you also were an EOC. So you were having to do a lot. What was your real, like, this is my motivation day 1 to day 5 or what have you?
Well, it was just really crazy. I mean, so by like 11 a.m. that morning, they shut down the roads in the entire county because of water. And I couldn't make it to EOC because the weather was too bad. EOC is about 10 miles south of Shipley. And so I was at home on my work laptop, and then I was seeing pictures and everything, but they were like, you can't get on the road. It's just not safe. And so I was just kind of like hoping and praying that things were going to be like, well, maybe it won't be too bad. Maybe the pictures are not as bad as I think they are. Maybe it's just up to like to the sidewalk. I mean, like maybe there's just a little bit of water into the front door. I'm like, it's not going to be bad. You start rationalizing, you talk yourself up to it. I'm like, it'll be fine. I'm like, we've got good insurance. It's nothing. You're going to be all right, and then the crazier part is that 24 hours later, Thursday morning, I was able to walk into the building. And then you're starting to see the damage. And I worked 12-hour days for 13 days. It took us 7 days to back up the entire library of what we could salvage. And then it seems like a dream now. I know I made it through it, but I don't know how I made it through it. A lot of caffeine. So
now, did you open at all, Renee, during this period, or were you completely closed?
So there are levels of floodwater, which something I did not know. We were flooded with what's considered category 3, which is black water, floodwater, which is when they suspect that there is sewage and other things in your water that has come into your building, which is really unpleasant to think about for a lot of reasons. So the county has a disaster response team. They contract out a company. Those people showed up. I was the only person in the building. I told my staff my staff migrated to another location, or they took off until we could kind of stabilize things, because I didn't want staff to be exposed to certain things. Interestingly enough, I'd had like my tetanus booster because of Hurricane Michael 2 years before. I felt like I was safe. I was wearing, I was wearing an older pair of sneakers that I tossed afterwards. But you know, we moved a book drop to our county government annex and advertised. We increased hours at branches, but we were out of our building from September until March of 2021. And then we started unpacking into the building. And then because of COVID, our shelving was delayed. So something that would have normally taken a few weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, ended up taking like 12 to 14 weeks. So we opened with computers and printing and copying and those kinds of things and Wi-Fi. And then we closed in July when our shelves actually showed up. And then we took 3 weeks to unpack everything that was salvageable. Interestingly enough, our collection of 40,000 items that were salvaged lived on 2 refrigerated, climate-controlled with dehumidifier semis in our parking lot for months and months. And then we officially opened to the public August 2nd of 2021, and we were back full services. So, but yeah, at one point there were 2 semis, a generator, 4 porta potties, and 3 dumpsters, and 3 like big metal containers all in my parking lot.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
It was crazy.
I have no words, Renee, and I've seen the pictures and I've heard the words, but I think until you go through that, walking in that much water, seeing that much damage to your library books, and then also pondering like, what's next? How can we go from here, and what are our priorities? And I think that kind of crisis mode will make you a better person, and maybe now me too, knowing that, you know, like it can happen. You know,
it's made me grayer.
Okay, Meg, we're going to talk about the good old COVID, right, Meg? We're going to talk about what kind of crisis Meg went through in 2020, something that we've all experienced somewhat. And I think that it's good to hear other people's, because I love the silver linings, and we'll get to the silver linings at the end. But like, what did we learn, or what have we done that's made it better? Or, you know, I'm going to let it go from here, Meg, because I don't want to talk for you.
Oh, sure. So yeah, our crisis of 2020 was the collective crisis of all of us. Going through the COVID experience. For us, what that looked like was the library director and I had gone to a training the week of March 9, 2020. We came home on a Wednesday, and to find out there had been a pretty serious patron incident in the building that evening. So we raced home, and then the next day we were dealing with that, which was the Thursday of that week. And everything, you know, COVID at this point was very much in the background. And then all of a sudden at 11 o'clock on Friday morning, Friday the 13th of March 2020, the health department called and just told us to kick everyone out and shut the doors. So there was not a lot of time to plan or prepare for that. It came on pretty unexpectedly. I'm not sure how other libraries ended up getting closed, but that was our experience. It was just swift and pretty exciting. And so then we were standing in the library at 11:30 on Friday morning, just wondering, you know, what to do next.
Mm-hmm.
So
what do you think, you know, both Renee and Meg, as we've gone through this crisis, or y'all have gone through this crisis, you know, I want to cycle it back to just open source and Koha and some of the advantages of what was brought to you from this experience, from that open source experience, whether that's, you know, I can imagine maybe there were some staff projects that could be done at home, or it sounds like Renee might have changed locations. And again, we're working with an open source software, web-based, so that's kind of easier. If one of you, Renee, do you want to speak to that a bit? Oh, you're muted.
Whoops, sorry. Definitely there are two things that I was immediately grateful for. One, that I had ByWater to reach out to, and two, that I don't host my ILS in my building. I mean, the fact that I knew that our ILS was safely on servers not in Florida was a huge comfort for me. To know that I didn't have to worry about any data being compromised, that I was still easily able to access our catalog, and that I had somebody who knew how to, I could submit a ticket and say, hey, I have this unusual situation. Can you hide everything that belongs to a certain library? Can you, there were so many things, and with COVID as well, how do you quarantine materials? And I'm sure Meg can elaborate on this, what she did as well. But yeah, it just, those were the two things that just, it was nice to have backup, as I like to call it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Meg?
Sure. I completely agree with what Renee said, being able to reach out to the community right away, knowing that everybody was going through some version of a lot of the questions we were facing. There was a real hive mind mentality that was comforting to be able to look to that. And then also not hosting anything here. We knew we could just reach out for help however we needed it. We, at the time that COVID struck and we had to close, we were also in the process of just having started switching over every single one of our patrons to a new different library barcode. And we had just been doing that as people were coming in the building. And so the reason we were doing that is kind of complicated, but mostly so that people could access digital resources. So all of a sudden, we had no way to get people in the building to switch out their library card, and a whole lot of people that were going to be interested in digital services that had not switched over yet. And so we were able to get on a Zoom call with ByWater right away, and you all helped us figure out how we could set up self-registration within that first week that we were closed. And so it was really only a matter of days that we kind of closed up and regrouped before we were able to turn around and begin offering all kinds of library services again, between self-registration to access digital resources, and then making curbside work was another huge benefit to all of that. So we were able to work with the community to learn how to get all our notices turned off, have so that we were communicating, correctly. We mass extended all the due dates out until April, and then we ended up doing it again another time, everybody out until July. We couldn't get access to any kind of cleaning materials, and so at first we weren't taking anything back, and then we did start taking stuff back, but no one was touching it for a week at a time. So we had to have notices that were communicating to people, we understand you may have returned this item and we're sorry, we're sure it's in the building, but don't worry, there's no late fines, and it's all going to work out. So we learned that turning on auto renewals was the blessing we never knew that was there, that we needed, so that things could renew while they were sitting inside the building and we weren't able to touch them. So lots of helpful silver linings there.
The big word I love that Renee said, and I think Meg said it also, is delegate. There are a million other things that libraries were handling, and to be able to delegate some responsibilities to somebody else to say, please do this. And I know, I was working on the education team, and I remember libraries were actually thinking of things before I was thinking of those. They were already how do I customize my notice to say, thanks for returning this, but it's still going to show checked out, or what have you. Those details, it was great to see that collaboration and just getting those resources out to libraries throughout. And then, Meg brought up both things that the Koha community put together of that curbside plugin, which phenomenal that the Koha community, and that's why we love open source, is just they dug right in. We work from home, nothing's really affecting us. And also the batch due dates. ByWater was doing it for our partners, but there are lots of libraries out there that don't have a support company, and there wasn't the ability to do it through the staff interface before the community said, we've got to get this because people need this, this tool. So I really appreciate that delegation. And, I praise all the librarians out there that thought of the million things, e-resources, getting the material out to them regardless. Renee opened new branches. So, just being able to have that opportunity to say, I need to serve my public in a way that we're not forgotten, or, that we have people that have a need. So I really like that. What is I can't say the pandemic's over yet, but what are the future plans that you have, Meg, that maybe something that's gone on in your library that you're like, we're going to continue doing this, or this is how we're evolving because of the pandemic?
Sure. So we'll never get rid of curbside. That is such a wonderful service. And there's so many applications outside of the pandemic. Someone could have a sleeping kid in the car, or just, mobility. It's easier to have someone bring it out to you for folks. So that was great to learn how easy it is to execute that and just offer it to patrons without a lot of extra work for us at all. So 100% worth it. A lot of when we had the staff that couldn't be in the building, a lot of folks were looking for training opportunities from home. And so a real benefit that came out of that was folks watching Monday Minutes or other free trainings that were out there. And then people would come back to me with ideas about how to improve our system. So we learned how to and began using mark modification templates. We turned on the feature where, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it now, where the cataloger who was working from home was able to, while she was working with the items related to a record, see where it would go on the shelf.
Oh, the call number browse.
Yes, that's exactly it. So we turned that on so she could see where something would go in the library when she couldn't physically come in here. All these, and that now she just loves to use it. It's just a helpful tool. So, lots of, I know there's more silver linings. Those are two big ones that come to mind.
Perfect. That's perfect.
Great trainings.
Yeah, no, I the training was a great opportunity for a lot of libraries. We would like to pay you to work, but you can't come to the building. How can we make you a better librarian? So from your house. Renee, Silver, what's here to stay, or what do you have in your now knowledge bank to say, I rocked that water crisis, and now I can tell people, or do you have a emergency binder or something,
I do have a go bag. And I have a folder. Well, it's really a binder that says, in case I get hit by a bus, everything you need to run Washington County Public Library System. So it has been a working document. And I constantly think of other things to put into it. It has things like how to open a ticket at Koha, right? Or who to call when things go wonky, and but it also has general record schedules for records retention and those kinds of things. And who, the randomness, right? And some brief history of branches. So basically anybody who could just randomly step in. I think the biggest silver lining for us was definitely auto renewals. We actually finally turned it off last month, I think. So that was wonderful. And then also where we just essentially ByWater created a 3-day quarantine for books. So things came into the building, and we just left them for 3 days. And so we scanned as we came in and wiped down, and then we just shut them in a room. And then I knew that we would just put a Post-it note on that book cart, and when the 3 days were up, they could just go out to the stacks. So that was wonderful. That was a huge silver lining. And then also going to a 4-day work week was the biggest silver lining. If you're not working a 4-day work week, I would highly suggest that you start talking to your people in charge who make those decisions. We started it I would say it was May, because the state of Florida closed for pretty much all of April. We actually closed March 19th, the library system. We were all working in the building. We activated with USDA summer feeding program early. We've been doing that for a number of years, almost 6 years now. So that activated early. And so we started feeding almost immediately. We are lucky enough that our main library location has a drive-through window. So we were handing out food, paper unemployment applications, all of these things that we needed. But I knew immediately that my budget was hemorrhaging from COVID, because all of a sudden I was spending a fortune just to get toilet tissue and Clorox wipes. And we were doing some PPE procurement for emergency management. This is this other duties as assigned kind of thing that happens when you're in a small county. And so I was like, okay, well, how do we pull this off? What are we going to do? My county was spending money, and there's not limitless amounts of money in government, especially in small government. So we went to a 4-day work week, and we worked 4 10-hour days. And what it has done for staff morale, what it's done for me, and what it's done for everybody that I work with is incredible. And I don't think it would have been as easy if I'd not had somebody else who's handling the ILS, right? So I don't have to worry about things going bonkers or having issues, and that there's an easy way to change the calendar and tools and in Koha. So it wasn't a biggie. We started it with Koha with COVID, right? Of course. And then we flooded. And then when we reopened in August of last year, we just kept the 4 days, and I haven't had a single complaint from a patron about it. They are happy that we're open earlier in the morning, and they like that we're open till 6 o'clock at night. I mean, it makes for long days, but the reality of it is, I think we are able to do better service.
Wow. I'm jealous, really jealous. That's fantastic. 4-day work week. Oh, those are, I can imagine though, they're a little bit longer of a day than most people. You'd have to get used to that a bit. Now, what do you think your past self, have you learned in this crisis mode, either of you or both of you, throughout this process? What have you been thankful for, or what have you learned as we kind of, Renee, definitely have emerged from your water, hopefully you've back in the building and all that. And Meg, what have we learned 2 years in, what have we learned thus far in the pandemic that really we're thankful for, and just, that we have grown in this process?
Sure. The community is there for you. There's good ideas out there. It's great to just talk to other libraries all over the place and find out what they're doing, how they're dealing, share ideas. That alone, I mean, it's not new, but it was just so well reinforced, I think, with COVID and just the ease of talking to people over Zoom. I know we all get a little overwhelmed with all the virtual meetings, but still, it's such a great, wonderful, accessible way to get access to people. For me, I often find it easier to talk through problems rather than try to write everything out in a ticket. And that has been super helpful, I would say. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You know, being out here pretty isolated from any other libraries too, you know, being able to connect in that way was hugely valuable. And don't be afraid of change. Everything could get thrown out the window in, you know, a matter of a couple of minutes, and you're, you know, just get creative and don't be afraid to try things. You're not gonna generally make it worse.
I like the generally not make it worse. Before I go to Renee, we did at ByWater, we did a couple of town halls and had librarians come and share their ideas, and we'll share those links with y'all. But it was just the opportunity. Some libraries were doing amazing things that they had thought of. And I unfortunately don't have that like ideology brain as much as other people do. And I really fed on those ideas to say, of course, that would be a great idea. So I think that brought people together as a common purpose in life, in our job, to say, we're here, we're librarians, we're going to make it happen. And we're not sure how, or maybe we should call the neighbor or go on the listserv, or, you know, go on the Slack channel or what have you.
Yeah, some of those, we had some great like town halls where people shared ideas about like using 3D printers to print the headbands for face masks because people's ears were hurting. You know, setting up self-checkout, because with Koha, you know, it's really easy to turn the self-checkout feature on, and a lot of people weren't using it, but they had spare like laptops or extra screens laying around, so they could set it up so they could limit the exposure with people. The QR code option, so if they were doing reference interviews, they could just turn their screen around and, you know, a patron could use their mobile phone to scan it, and then the catalog record would come right to their device. So like those were just like so amazing to just listen to what people were doing. I mean, to me, that's like the best thing about open source, is just the community, to like hear those ideas, listen to what people have to say, and like just get chills thinking about it.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Like the Slack channel, like if you're gonna listen to anything on Slack, definitely the reports channel is like the best channel on the planet. Okay. Like I don't like other librarians think of reports I would never dream in a million years to write, but they're there. And I'm like, oh wow, I would really love to know this about my catalog. And that has just been like a game changer for me. I have to be careful that I don't go down the Alice in Wonderland hole that is Slack channel and not do my other work, but it is really, really, really great. And, you know, it was really nice to see on the listserv people say, hey, listen, this is what we're doing. You know, maybe this will work for you. I mean, you know, I can't imagine anybody else handling curbside as fast. I mean, I know other people well, we won't talk about those other ILSs, but they're still waiting on things, or they have them, but they're an additional fee for the library. And let's face it, budgets are not going to be great for a while. So, you know, the knowledge that I got certain things for free, just because I'm part of open source software is wonderful.
Amen. And I was thinking, go ahead, Meg.
Oh, I'm just going to reiterate what Renee was saying with reports. So between the Slack channel and the Koha wiki, it became this magical place to go and shop for ideas for what to set people up with, both from work from home and like projects in the building when staff were back, but we still couldn't have many patrons in the building at once. And it was real meaningful, helpful stuff to have people working on while, you know, everything was kind of on hold in that way. And so that was just invaluable.
Absolutely. And I think we had a lot of people ask about auto renewals and self-registration and those metrics, the data that you could present to say, look at our astronomical numbers of how many people registered once we went into the pandemic. Like they had no other resources. And that's like good kudos to librarians to make it happen. Like we continue to strive, we continue to do better. And our staff were more educated by the end and learning ways to help patrons without them coming into the building. Fantastic. So we talked a little bit about, a flood and COVID. We had a couple other little snippets of libraries that have dealt with other things. We didn't have people join us today, but we, during a migration, and I think we can share the press release. We had a migration of, I'll have Jesse talk about this one because, this one. Okay, perfect. During a migration, and this was 2020, I think as well, there was a mudslide, a natural disaster mudslide in Alaska that they were going through this smoothest migration they've ever had. That's what she first said. However, then they couldn't go live because they were 100% not able to due to mud. And, she brings up to the point of like, ByWater helped us be able to just postpone it and move on. So wait a couple weeks, maybe the mud will dry up and we can do the bigger thing we need to do, but we need to focus on our library and our community and our people before we get a new catalog system. So that's something that's just recently happened.
And I love what they say, 15 minutes of training had their volunteers taking over the circ desk so staff could work directly with people. I mean, that shows you just like resources that are available from the community and like just how intuitive Koha's interface is for them to be able to go in there and just, quickly learn that system despite everything that was happening around them. It was just incredible to read this and be able to work with them. And we have another one that one of our libraries actually went through back in 2018, Butte County Library in California. The Paradise branch was hit by the campfires in California. And we worked with their library as well. We worked with them to do a GoFundMe for their staff members who lost their homes in the fire, and just worked with them to make sure that, being a part of that community and getting them back up and running when they finally could reopen. Here's a positive picture of their reopening, and to get things back up and going. So, you never know what it's going to be: a pandemic, a fire, a mudslide, a flood, a hurricane, a blizzard. Just being able to be part of that community and quickly make a change within your system, I think is just crucial, in today's environment.
And we'll remind people that there are resources, the Koha community, as we brought up, the wiki, the Koha report wiki, the MANA database. There's a Koha listserv. If you're a partner of ours, there's a partner listserv. There's a partner Slack channel, which Renee loves, the report wizard, the report one. So do I. And it's just a way to talk to other folks and say, we're having a problem doing this, or what's a better way to do this, or what's a better workflow. Or I saw recently, I saw Monday Minutes and I'd love a report on this. And somebody presented it. So it was like, we hadn't even gone that far in our thought process, but somebody was already getting to, how do I get that data? And I just love, I get shivers just as much as Jesse does, talking about just the community, the ability to have things that are free, curbside plugin, all these features that were just rolled out and said, get books to people, get resources to people. And this is the best way to do it. So, well, I think we don't have any questions, Jesse, right?
No questions. No
okay,
questions.
Perfect. Well, thank you from the bottom of my heart, Meg and Renee, I'm so glad to see y'all. I'm sorry we couldn't see each other in person, but again, conferences are open. We will be at PLA. So if anybody's at PLA, come stop by our booth, tell us your crisis story, or just anything you want to talk to us about Koha. And we're happy to be here for you to support you in any natural disaster or just day-to-day operations. And thank you, Renee.
All right. Thank you, Kelly and Renee and Meg again. And please stay tuned. We have about 15 minutes. Our next session will kick off for our group, and that will start at 4 p.m. Where we'll be discussing the Aspen Discovery Community. So if you just sit still, we'll have a presentation on building library community virtually, where we'll talk about professional communities, and we'll be joined by presenters Sam Passy from Uinta County Library, Bob Benhoff from Aspen Cat, which is the Colorado Library Consortium, Tara Wood from Swan Library Services in Illinois, and Mark Noble from Aspen Discovery, along with Cal Marquise from ByWater Solutions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.